In the 20th century, human beings achieved absolute mastery over the physical world. We split the atom, mapped the genome, and connected the globe. Yet this exact same era produced totalitarian regimes, industrial-scale extermination camps, and an epidemic of political isolation. Hannah Arendt dedicated her life to understanding this exact paradox. After fleeing Nazi Germany, she sought to diagnose exactly how modern society had become so technologically advanced, yet completely lost its capacity for actual political freedom. To find the root of this collapse, Arendt looked to classical antiquity. The Greeks maintained a strict boundary between two realms of life. The private sphere was the hidden household, a place ruled by biological necessity, inequality, and the struggle for physical survival. The public sphere, the polis, was the open space where citizens met as equals to deliberate and act. Arendt argued that modernity birthed a third, highly destructive realm, the social. This occurs when the economic imperatives of the household, production, consumption, and the management of biological needs, break out of the private sphere and expand to consume all of society. This diagram maps out Arendt's diagnosis. As the modern economy grows, the social swallows both the private and the public. It transforms the public square from a place of debate into a massive administrative machine. Politics is reduced to managing the economy, and citizens are reduced to mere consumers and laborers. Within this expanding social realm, behavior is normalized. Bureaucracy replaces active decision-making. Every human activity is judged by a single monolithic metric. Does it aid in the relentless cycle of economic production and consumption? Arendt called the result world alienation. When the public sphere is destroyed, we lose the shared objective reality that connects us. Citizens become isolated nodes floating in a void, severed from any meaningful collective power. This alienated mass society is highly vulnerable to authoritarianism. For Arendt, true human togetherness requires active civic engagement, a space where people gather to debate, persuade, and decide their shared fate. To recover this lost freedom, we cannot rely on the worn-out political categories of the 20th century. We have to dismantle the modern conflation of human activities and rebuild our definitions from the ground up. She provided this new framework in her 1958 book, The Human Condition, by dividing human existence into three strict ontological categories, collectively called the vita activa. Until we separate our daily activities into these distinct tiers, we remain blind to how bureaucratic mass society actively suffocates human agency. This is Arendt's tripartite model. The foundational tier of human existence is labor. In this realm, human beings exist as animal laborans, caught in a continuous, closed biological loop of metabolism, consumption, and reproduction. Labor is tied exclusively to biological necessity. It is the effort required to keep the body alive. Because its fruits, like food, are immediately consumed, labor leaves no permanent trace in the world. It is an endless, repetitive cycle. In the realm of labor, individuality does not exist. We operate entirely as a species, bound to the exact same biological imperatives of survival. We behave rather than act. Arendt saw that modern society made a fatal error. It elevated the biological necessity of labor to the absolute highest human value. We prioritize endless productivity and the accumulation of wealth above all else, trapping ourselves in a society of laborers who value nothing beyond consumption. Moving up the model, the second tier of the vita activa is work. Here, humans operate as homo faber, the maker. Work is distinct from labor. It is the unnatural process of fabrication. Instead of cyclical consumption, work is linear. It takes a conceptual blueprint, extracts materials from nature, and creates durable artificial artifacts. These fabricated objects, buildings, tools, art, and infrastructure, stack together to form a stable physical environment. This environment provides a common world. It separates us from the chaos of nature and creates a permanent stage that outlasts our individual mortal lives. However, work has a strict limitation. It is governed entirely by instrumental logic. Everything is a means to an end. A hammer is built to drive a nail. A building is built to provide shelter. If a modern society is solely focused on work, it applies this utilitarian logic directly to human beings. People become tools, and interactions are reduced to mere utility and efficiency. Neither the endless biological repetition of labor nor the utilitarian fabrication of work can disclose a unique human identity. They merely build and sustain the stage for a higher form of existence. This brings us to the highest tier of the vita activa, action. This takes place in what Arendt calls the space of appearance, populated by distinct plural individuals. The absolute precondition for action is plurality. This is the paradox that we are all equally human, capable of understanding one another, yet no two individuals are ever exactly alike. Through action, individuals disclose their unique identities. They reveal a specific who, an individual personality that remains hidden during the repetitive tasks of labor or the technical processes of fabrication. This disclosure happens through speech and deeds. When we act and communicate in the public sphere, we insert ourselves into the human world. Arendt links this capacity directly to natality. Because each birth introduces a uniquely new person into the world, human beings inherently possess the spontaneity to begin something entirely new and unexpected. But action cannot happen in isolation. It requires a public audience of peers. Without others to witness the deed, judge its quality, and remember it through narrative, the action holds no meaning. When this interconnected network of action is sustained, it generates a highly specific phenomenon. Arendt calls this emergent lattice power. Notice the structure. Power is horizontal and emergent. It is never a property owned by an individual or a top-down hierarchy. Power is sui generis. It springs up exclusively when a plurality of actors choose to act in concert. It rests entirely on persuasion, rational discourse, and mutual consent. Arendt strictly separates power from force, which is a natural phenomenon, and violence. Violence relies on coercive implements to force compliance. Violence can destroy power, but it can never create it. Because it relies on active consent, power is extremely fragile. It cannot be stored up, hoarded, or permanently institutionalized without decaying. The moment the actors stop communicating and disperse, the power vanishes. True political power is never the ability to dominate or coerce others. It is the fragile, collective capacity of a plurality to act together and forge a shared reality. Action, however, carries inherent dangers. Because it occurs within an already existing, complex web of human relationships, the consequences of any single deed spiral without limit. Every action triggers an unlimited chain reaction. This creates utter unpredictability. No single actor, no matter how intelligent or well-intentioned, can ever fully control or foresee the final historical outcome of their deeds. Furthermore, these processes are irreversible. Once the cascade alters the network, the events cannot be undone. If you make a mistake in the realm of work, you can simply destroy the faulty product and build a new one. But action leaves permanent scars on the human web. Historically, the Western philosophical tradition looked at this chaos and recoiled. To solve the unpredictability of human affairs, philosophers often proposed retreating from action entirely, seeking safety in isolated contemplation, or imposing order through absolute coercive rule. Arendt firmly rejects this retreat. Curing the dangers of human freedom by destroying freedom itself is the exact mechanism of totalitarianism. Instead, we must rely on two internal structural remedies that arise directly from the faculties of action itself. The first remedy for unpredictability is the act of promising. By making and keeping promises, plural actors bind themselves to specific courses of action. This creates stable, reliable islands of certainty in an otherwise unpredictable future, allowing us to coordinate without resorting to tyranny. The remedy for irreversibility is forgiving. Forgiveness releases actors from the paralyzing burden of unintended past consequences. Without the ability to undo what we have done, we would be forever trapped by a single mistake. Forgiving breaks that chain, allowing the community to begin anew. These faculties, action, plurality, promising, and forgiving, form the absolute core of Arendt's vision of citizenship. Arendt's vision of citizenship rejects the idea that government is merely a tool for economic management or a system for maximizing private self-interest. True politics exists as an end in itself, the active, courageous maintenance of a public space where human plurality is protected and freedom is actualized as a living, worldly reality.